Aaron Torres joining us here to talk some basketball. Host of the Aaron Torres podcast, sports podcast, and on Fox Sports Radio as well. AT, it is your time. Can you give me an estimation of how many basketball games, morning, noon, and night, you think you might have watched yesterday, what you got tonight, tomorrow? How many games do you think you're watching this weekend?
Well, I can say, considering that last year on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I got one half before the world stripped me of my favorite week of the year, it's up about 10,000%, much like the ratings of this show because you guys kill it. But I'll tell you, listen, I try to have fun. I try to be loose. I don't think how much I missed this week and everything that we get in March and even April, May, June, until this week hit, and I realized, it was really a year ago that we lost all this. And so, look, there were bigger issues at the time. I'm glad we've largely moved past them. I think the NCAA tournament's going to be the last real big sporting event that looks completely different than before the world was altered. And so I'm really excited. To answer your question, Phil, it's a lot. I don't know how to even quantify it.
Yeah, too many to count, probably. It's definitely the time of the year you can get drunk on college basketball and forget how many you've had. Maybe tonight with this Mizzou-Arkansas game, take 3. I feel like this is almost like a take 1. The third time these teams have played each other, Aaron, but Jeremiah Tillman was not in the second game. Arkansas won that. Justin Smith was injured the first time around. Mizzou won that one handily. So it feels like these teams know each other well, but it's like really the first time they're meeting because those probably are the 2 MVPs of both of these clubs.
It's a great point. Hey, I've been so busy, to use a Phil Elson term, getting drunk on basketball. What is the status of Jailyn Williams? Is he officially out? Is it TBA? Is he in? What's the deal?
Well, from what we understand, he's with the team, which should mean that he is in that reacclimation period. He's not going to play today, but he is with the team, which for me means he'll be ready for the NCAA tournament, probably not playing at all this weekend, definitely not tonight.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I was just curious before I started, kind of going in-depth on Arkansas because I hadn't seen an update, and that was just poor planning on my part. There's so much going on. But, I am genuinely curious because I believe now. I was talking to some people at Arkansas. I think this season they think the season flipped with the win at Rupp Arena because it doesn't matter how bad Kentucky is. You win at Kentucky, it means a lot to your kids and your coaching staff. But as somebody who's watched, the vast majority of these games, I really think that Missouri game, because they had played all these good teams really close at Tennessee, couldn't pull it out. At Oklahoma State, couldn't pull it out. And Missouri was the first, NCAA tournament caliber team that they largely outplayed, and they were able to not only hold on, but then win in overtime. And so I think that was where the entire season flipped, and we'll just see if they can keep the momentum going. I was coming back from Vegas. I was working out there last week, as your audience knows, and I didn't get to watch the A&M game, so I have no feel for if the regular season was basically coming to an end, what happened, how they won. But I just say it to say that Missouri game the first time to me just felt like such a big turning point in this entire season and maybe, frankly, the trajectory of the whole program. So really fun game tonight. And like you said, Phil, 2 completely different teams than the ones we saw the first 2 times these teams played.
I'll give you a chance to talk about how Oklahoma State's been doing over. That's the only team that's beaten Arkansas, by the way, in the last 12 games. Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
They have maybe the best player in the country in Cade Cunningham. I think a lot of us want to think it's Moses Moody. This is when legacies are made in March for a lot of one-and-dones. Oklahoma State's got a lot of juice now, too.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, if they play Baylor today, and for some reason Baylor's the only team that they've really struggled with all season. But, if you're just looking for that team that's probably going to be a 5 seed, and they should be in the NCAA tournament. And I remember coming on with you guys on a Friday in June thinking they were done. Why even play the season? Is Cade Cunningham even going to show up? But knock on wood, they have not heard from the NCAA on their appeal. So my hunch is just I don't see the scenario where the NCAA would send them to the conference tournament and then make a decision after Selection Sunday. And so I bring all that up to very simply say they're going to the NCAA tournament. And you look at a team that, I don't do bracketology. I just, when the bracket comes out, I kind of overanalyze it then. But a 3 seed, a 4 seed, or whatever, I think they can play with anybody. I think they can compete with anybody. And it's interesting because, I know that it was a hot-button issue in Arkansas. Nate Oates winning SEC Coach of the Year, Eric Musselman, Juwan Howard, all good candidates for the National Coach of the Year. But I think what Mike Boynton has done with the chaos that's been around their season, and the fact that, oh, by the way, they are a team that's largely freshmen and sophomores. They're a team to watch in this March and going forward. I could see the scenario where even with Cade Cunningham gone next year, this is a team that's going to cause trouble for a lot of people going forward.
Aaron Torres from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast joining us here on Halftime.
By the way, real quick, I don't mean to jump in, but you mentioned the Aaron Torres Podcast. Pat Bradley was on the show today.
Yes,
so Arkansas legend, really fun interview. Now, obviously, some of it was talk of the SEC tournament, so it's a little bit outdated. But after halftime, if you're looking for something, I think most Arkansas fans would enjoy that interview. Okay, Matt, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I had to mention that.
No, you led right into what I was going to bring up. I mean, I've always loved listening to your podcast, but now you get him on there. Let's just dive into a little bit. Obviously, don't spoil anything with the conversation with him, but was there an interesting piece or part of that interview? I noticed at the top of your tweet here when you always post your podcast, how he ended up from Boston to Arkansas. So, I mean, what was some of the most interesting things that you learned about Pat Bradley and kind of his transition into Arkansas?
Well, I'll tell you, honestly, he would hate me saying this. The most interesting thing I learned was how old he was. I didn't realize, the summer that he committed to Arkansas was the year after they won the national championship, I believe. And then the following year, they obviously returned most of their team. This was everybody going to the NBA as soon as they could. And so his freshman year was the year after they made back-to-back Final Fours. And so, I only bring that up because I didn't realize that I thought he had played a few years after, but, he was really there during the height and hysteria of the Nolan Richardson era. Really fun time. Him being from Boston, I thought it was kind of funny. He was cracking up because, UMass was playing at an elite level at that point under John Calipari, and he said that they still joke about how Calipari really had no interest in a slow white kid that could only shoot threes. So, hey, maybe that's a metaphor for Calipari's current team because that's exactly what they need right now is a guy that can hit an open three-pointer. But, it was just a really fun memory, and he's a great guy. I don't know, if you guys know him or have had a chance to talk to him, but he's just a trip, and I've always enjoyed him on SEC Network. There's been a few times when he's hosting on Sirius I've gone on with him. And it was just a really fun conversation. I think Arkansas fans would enjoy it. Again, as you said, Matt, it's pinned to the top of my Twitter, and I think people can find it there.
It's going to be fun to listen to. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we've all been connected with Pat Bradley in some form or fashion. I mean, I believe it.
I was the producer on his show for about 5 years, so I worked very closely with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
is he mean? Like, is he a yeller?
No.
I could just see him MF and everybody. No, I'm kidding.
It's funny, though, when you mention how old he is, because I remember when he turned 40 and I would – and comment, it's like, man, you're getting a little gray hair, and it's like he said that's wisdom.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Same age as me, Aaron.
That's
He's
right.
44 years old. I guess that's old now, yeah.
You still here, Aaron?
We might have lost him.
Yeah, he was having cell phone trouble, so I'll get him back on.
We'll see if we can get him back connected. But yeah, I was. You need to. If you haven't listened to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, it is a must-listen podcast. The dude does his homework, and obviously we talk Phil about a lot. He loves his Razorbacks, and obviously I haven't had a chance to listen to this Pat Bradley interview yet, but that's definitely going to be a must-listen.
Yeah, and 44 is old now, I guess, but it's okay. I understand. We're joking about that more than anything.
I think we're getting him
back.
We got Aaron back connected. Aaron, can you hear us again, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think Pat Bradley must have cut the line. I heard he turned 40, and he must have gotten upset about it. So.
That's awesome. All right, hey, real quick before we let you go, or before I throw it back over to Phil, want to get your thoughts on Kentucky. Now, I got lambasted yesterday because apparently I turned into a Kentucky fan yesterday, but
sounds about right.
Yeah, of course it does. And more or less, I didn't think Kentucky was going to win, but I was just waiting for that run that Kentucky seems like they always do, and obviously come up short against Mississippi State. Where does Kentucky go from here? And it was a disappointing season. I kind of want to talk a little bit about them and what was more disappointing, Kentucky or Indiana this year, because Indiana just stunk up the joint this whole season.
Well, as far as that question, the second part, I would actually argue Indiana. And, it's interesting. I had Archie Miller on my podcast in the preseason, and he really liked this group. And what was so frustrating about him is the kind of Kentucky had the same problem. They always played hard. They just couldn't make wide open jump shots, and if they could shoot, I think they probably shot about 30% from three if they could have shot just 33, 34%, I mean, we're talking about a team that probably realistically, is in the NCAA tournament right now. Kentucky, a lot of the same problems, but at least Kentucky had an entirely new roster. Indiana basically brought back everybody. With Kentucky going forward, what I would say, I think two things can be true. I do think they were hurt by no regular, out-of-conference portion of the schedule. If they get those easy wins early, it's interesting. They kind of took the opposite approach of Coach Muss. Coach Muss really just wanted to get games in, drivable games, and I think it kind of helped that team build confidence. Calipari took the exact opposite approach and played a lot of really difficult games, and he said yesterday, I would have done it over if I could have. But with them, I think part of it is it was just a weird COVID year, but I do think, I watch them, and they just struggle so much offensively sometimes. A bunch of big guys that are tough and physical but can't really shoot. And, you look at Arkansas as an example. Jailyn Williams can obviously hit an open jumper. There's some other guys there as well. Connor Vanover can hit a three. Alabama, I'm watching right now, is the exact same deal. I just think Calipari is a brilliant recruiter, but I do think, he has to kind of overhaul the types of players that he's looking for, because I do think this is a new era of basketball.
Definitely. When no Kentucky in the tournament, when no Indiana, when no Duke, things seem a little bit different. And you know what? It's a world I can get used to. Aaron, appreciate your time. Yeah, I appreciate your time as always, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, AT.
No problem, fellas. Have a great afternoon.
You got it. Well, I mean, a guy that does write for Kentucky Sports Radio and has relationships with those folks, I can understand where you would come from there. But I think a lot of us also are just sick of it and would just rather see Kentucky be in the situation of Texas football, Indiana basketball, USC baseball in a lot of cases, just waiting for the moment where you could finally say, we're back. But it's not true anyway. 877-377-6963 to get on halftime over the next hour and change. Ty Richardson joins us bottom of hour number 2. You just are sick of this, dude. I get it. You do a morning show with him. I get it.
I've heard his voice for 3 hours this morning.
We'll do more preview Arkansas La Tech baseball and mess around a little bit, too. Should be fun. Halftime back.